So for this week's module, I chose the topic of financial decision making. I chose that because when you are looking to when investors are looking to make a decision to invest in a company or not, they're going to want to evaluate cash flows, but they're going to want to take a look at what their investments would look like over a series of time, and kind of your cash flows over a series of time as well, and see how those are valued. So obviously cash today is going to be valued more in the future just because you can invest it, you can earn interest on it. So they're going to take those sorts of things into consideration, as well as investors make their decisions on investing based on the projected health of the business. So again, they're going to be looking at the cash flows for today versus a year from now, 10 years from now, before they make their decisions. So more specifically, for some calculations, I chose to focus on the 3 rules. So to define those, rule 1. So looking at rule 1, you will need to, when you're looking to evaluate cash flows over different periods of time, you're going to want to convert your cash flow values to the same period. So if you're looking at, cash flows from year 1 to year 4, you're going to want to either convert the cash flow values to year 1, or you're going to want to convert the cash values to year 4. And then for rule 2, you will want to, this is just kind of telling you that if you're looking to calculate your cash flows to like the future value, so for instance, the example that I gave was year 1 versus year 2, year 1 versus year 4, you're going to want to compound it. So you're going to want to multiply by the compound interest rate for each year. So looking at the future, you would then take year 1's expected cash flows, and you would multiply that by the compound interest rate per year. So if you're looking to get to the 4th year's value, then you're going to compound that 3 times, because you can earn interest on that for 3 years. For rule 3, if you're looking to calculate cash flows for the earlier year value, so kind of going the opposite way. So if you're going to take year 4's cash flows, and you're going to convert that to year 1 value, and you're going to do that by discounting it. So that means that you're going to divide year 4 cash flow by the compound interest rate per year. So if we were looking to go from year 4 to year 1, you are going to divide that by the compound interest rate 3 times, because you can earn interest 3 years. So I'm going to be giving examples of each one of the rules. So for rule 1, when you're comparing cash flows at different times, so the example here, the expected cash flows for year 1 is $12,000 versus looking at cash flows from year 2, which would be same thing, $12,000. So trying to evaluate whether you would, rather receive $12,000 today, or if you're going to want to receive the $12,000, next year. So the interest rate is 10%. So converting that to a future value, you're going to be looking at year 1. To convert that to a future value, you are going to multiply that by the interest rate, or the compound interest rate. So it's going to be $12,000 times 1.1, which is going to give you $13,200. Year 2 is obviously still $12,000 because we're looking at the future value. So you're looking at this here, how you converted it. Year 1 being $13,200 versus year 2 being $12,000. You're obviously going to want to accept the cash flows of $12,000 today, rather than wait a year from now, because a year from now you could have earned $1,200 on that $12,000 that you took in. So you'd essentially be losing out if you waited a year. For rule 2, we're going to calculate the future cash flow. So we looked at that a little bit with rule 1, but I gave kind of a more complex example with this one. So expected cash flows for year 1 are $12,000, and then expected cash flows for year 4, $15,000, interest rate still 10%. So we're going to compound it, because you can, compound interest rate, which means that you can continue to earn interest on the interest from years before. So year one, converting that to the future, so you had the $12,000, you're going to multiply it by 1.1 for every year that you could have earned that compound interest rate, so for 3 years. So 12,000 times 1.1, then times 1.1, then times 1.1, which would give you a total future value, cash flow value of $15,972. For year 4, it is still at the $15,000. So looking at $15,972, if we would accept those cash flows today, that's how much we would, have earned by year 4, versus if we would just accept the $15,000 in year 4. So obviously we're going to want to accept those cash flows today, so that way we can continue to earn compound interest over those, the next 3 years. And then for rule 3, so looking at calculating an earlier cash flow, so same numbers as rule 2, so you have year 1, $12,000, year 4, $15,000, interest rate still 10%. So this time we're going to discount it. So year 1 is left at $12,000, but we're going to take year 4's cash flow values, and we're going to discount it by dividing it by that compound interest rate. So $15,000 divided by 1.1, divided by 1.1, divided by 1.1. So we're doing that 3 times because there's 3 years that you could have earned compound interest rate on. So that brings it down to a total of $11,270. So looking at $12,000 versus $11,270, which would be the value of it today. Obviously the value of it today, which means it would be less than the $12,000. So we are going to stick with still taking the $12,000 today. Lastly, for ethics, so I focused on being truthful about, like the cash flows and the finances. So the Bible verse that I used was, do not have 2 differing weights in your bag, one heavy, one light. Do not have 2 differing measures in your house, one large, one small. You must have accurate and honest weights and measures, so that you may live long in the land of the Lord your God is giving you. So Deuteronomy 29, 13, verses 13 to 15. So I focused on this verse because I think it's very meaningful behind being accurate about what we report, being accurate about our calculations, because ultimately, we want to have a long-lasting life, not only on this earth, but in heaven as well with the Lord, and we're only going to be able to do that by being truthful, not only to ourselves and to God, but to other people as well in all aspects of life. Thank you.